Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Dan Beasley Show. It's 9:53 a.m. on 5/9 on May 9, 2013. It's Thursday, and the weather's nice here in Hartsville, South Carolina, a little on the chilly side. Hopefully it'll warm up in the afternoons, and then we'll be heading for a warm spell, hopefully. Today we're going to be covering a topic called punishment for doing right, and we'll be taking our news sources from blacklisted.com and also blacklistednews.com, that is, and the New King James Version Bible. For those of you who are not familiar with the news is managed every day. They have so much that they can fit into their format, and then after that, it's snip, snip, snip. Let's wait and play this later, or let's just let it lay on the floor. One of the two, or whatever. We got a problem with people, with believing the stories about why we went into the Iraqi war in the first place. When the Twin Towers were taken down, all the members were from Yemen or from Saudi Arabia. But yet we go in and we attack a country called Iraq, which is not really directly attacking the problem. It's like shooting in the opposite direction, actually. Although the Taliban is all over the Middle East, it's currently trying to overtake the Muslim Brotherhood located in Egypt, which is also CIA sponsored. However, we have to remember at one point that Saddam Hussein himself was a CIA operative. We have problems with dictators that we set up, and then we take them down whenever we're ready. Daniel Noriega was one such person, and also we've taken down other people as well. We set up a bunch of them in the Banana Republic, and we just set one up in Paraguay, I think. We organized a coup there that wasn't widely publicized, and that's probably because of the oil production that's going on there. We're getting back to the 20 lies of why we went into the Iraqi war. And here's lie number one. Iraq was responsible for the 11th September attacks. There's a meeting in Prague between Muhammad Atta, which was the leader of the terrorists, the 11 hijackers. He was an Iraqi intelligence official. And that was the main basis for this claim. But Czech intelligence later conceded that Iraqi's contact could not have been Atta. This did not stop the constant stream of assertions that Iraq was involved in 9/11, which is so successful on some opinion polls that showed that 2/3 of Americans believed the hand of Saddam Hussein was behind the attacks. Almost as many believed Iraqi hijackers were aboard the crashed airliners, which in fact there were none. Like I said before, Saddam Hussein used to be on the CIA payroll. He was a paid operative whenever they were fighting Iran. I don't know if you remember them fighting Iran or not, but Saddam Hussein, instead of letting his Air Force get blown to bits, he flew his entire fleet over to the Iranians across the Iranian border and landed them in Iran so that they would be spared. and he gave the Iranians untold air power. Lie number 2, Iraq and Al-Qaeda were working together. Persistent claims by U.S. and British leaders that Saddam and Osama bin Laden were in league with each other. And it was contradicted by a leaked British Defense Intelligence staff report, which said there were no current leaks between them. That's links between them. I'm sorry. Mr. bin Laden's aims are in ideological conflict with present-day Iraq, it added. Another strand to the claims was that Al-Qaeda members were being sheltered in Iraq and had set up poison training camps. When the U.S. reached the camp, they found no chemical or biological traces. I'd have to go back and say this about the the Iraqi attack. We sent people over, and the UN sent people over. The British people sent people over to see if they were making yellow cake, which is the raw material for making enriched plutonium. They did not find any such evidence. They think now that maybe some of that evidence was moved to Syria, but they're not sure if there was ever any weapons of mass destruction other than chemical weapons. And so anyway, that was one of the big reasons for going into Iraq. That was lie number 2. And lie number 3 is along the same line. This is Iraq was seeking uranium from Africa after that for a reconstructed nuclear weapon program. Here the CIA now admits the documents show that Iraq tried to import uranium from Niger and West Africa were forged, and that the claim should have never been in President Bush's State of the Union address. Britain sticks by its claim, insisting as separate intelligence. The Foreign Office conceded last week that this information is now under review. Folks, you're only good as the intelligence that you're fed. The president depends on these people to go out and to find out what's going on in the world and to report back to him. He was given false reports and almost on a daily basis to what was actually going on inside Iran. Up until that time, Iran was our ally. Lie number 4, Iraq was trying to import aluminum tubes to develop nuclear weapons. The U.S. persistently alleged that Baghdad tried to buy high-strength aluminum tubes which could only be used in a gas centrifuge needed to enrich uranium and nuclear weapons. Equally persistently, the International Atomic Agency said tubes were being used for artillery rockets. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Mohammed El Baradei, told the United Security Council in January that tubes were not even suitable for centrifuges. So we move on to lie number 5. Iraq still has vast stocks of chemical and biological weapons from the first Gulf War. Iraq possessed enough dangerous substances to kill the entire world. It was alleged more than once. It had drone aircraft that could be smuggled into the U.S. and used to spray chemical and biological toxins. Experts pointed out that apart from mustard gas, Iraq never had the technology to produce materials with a shelf life of 12 years, the time between the two wars. All such agents would have been deteriorated to the point of uselessness years ago. Lie number 6. Iran retained up to 20 missiles which could carry chemical or biological warheads with a range which could threaten British forces in Cyprus. Again, apart from the fact there has been no sign of these missiles since the invasion, Britain downplayed the risk of there being such a weapon in Iraq once the war started. It was also revealed that Chinese protection equipment was removed from British bases in Cyprus last year, indicating that the government did not take its own claim seriously. Okay, number 7, I'm sorry. Saddam Hussein had the queer withdrawal to develop smallpox. This allegation was made by Secretary of State Senator. I'm sorry, folks, I'm not with it today. I've been sick for the last few days, and it's no excuse. I'm on medication right now. 7. Saddam Hussein had the queer withdrawal to develop smallpox. This allegation was made by the Secretary of State, Colin Powell, in his address to the UN Security Council in February. The following month, the UN said there was nothing to support it. So you see, you get half the news. If you don't follow the news stories, you'll go off believing all these things. Reason number 8, the U.S. and British claims were supported by the inspectors. And this is where I said, they were told that they were trying to buy yellow cake and they were making nuclear bombs and all this other stuff. According to Jack Straw, Chief UN Weapons Inspector Hans Blix pointed out that Iraq had 10,000 liters of anthrax. Tony Blair and Iraq's chemical, biological, and indeed the nuclear weapons program has been documented by the UN. Mr. Blix's reply was, "This is not the same as saying they're weapons of mass destruction." He said last summer, "If I had solid evidence that Iraq had retained weapons of mass destruction or were constructing weapons, I would take it to the Security Council." In May of this year, he said, "I am obviously very interested in the question of whether or not there were weapons of mass destruction, and I'm beginning to suspect that possibly they were not." So, we had no legal reason to go into Iraq. Reason number 9, previous weapons inspections have failed. Tony Blair told his newspaper in March that the UN had tried unsuccessfully for 12 years to get Saddam to disarm peacefully. But in 1999, a Security Council panel concluded, although imported elements had still not been resolved, the bulk of Iraq's prescribed weapons programs had been eliminated. Mr. Blair claimed that the UN inspectors found no trace at all of Saddam's offensive biological weapons program until his son-in-law defected. In fact, the UN got the regime to admit its biological weapons program more than a month before the defection. Reason number 10, Iraq was obstructing the inspectors. The British in February had what they call dozy inspectors, escorts, that were trained to start long arguments with other Iraqi officials while the evidence was being hidden, and the inspectors were monitored and notified ahead of time to remove surprise. Dr. Blix said in February that the UN had conducted more than 400 inspections, all before notice, covering more than 300 sites. We note that access to each of these sites so far has been without problems. He said, "In no case we see convincing evidence that the Iraqi side knew that the inspectors were coming." Reason number 11, Iraq could deploy its